welcome to our online business startup overview. My name is Carlos Leyva. I am an attorney and managing partner with the Digital Business Law Group. The agenda for this overview video is as follows. We're going to provide a quick introduction and focus on key learning objectives. We're going to provide some background information by discussing what is an online business and business structures and organizations, and then we're going to move into the substance of the video and discuss online liability, applicable cyber law, and protecting your intellectual property. And finally, we're going to conclude with pointing you to some resources where you can continue to explore these topics and providing you some guidance going forward. Now, in many ways, starting an online business is like starting any other business. One, you need clarity regarding monetization. That is, you need clarity regarding how you're going to make money in the business. And two, you need to manage startup risk. However, there are important differences between a brick and mortar business and an online business. One, online businesses enter into a significant number of contracts early in the game. For example, website development, terms of use, privacy policies, etc. And two, online businesses face intellectual property and other applicable cyber law issues right from the onset. So the takeaway here is that the context matters and the risks are real and potentially devastating. Now, the learning objectives are as follows. We want to provide entrepreneurs a basic understanding of the legal issues related to starting an online business by reviewing one, the differences between an online business and a brick and mortar business. Two, risks related to doing business online, including intellectual property and other applicable cyber law risks. Three, process issues which are paramount regarding online contract formation and taking advantage of cyber law safe harbors. Four, protecting your IP, specifically focusing on copyrights and trademarks. And five, pointing you to additional resources where you can continue to explore these topics. Now, what is an online business? Well, now that's an easy question to answer because we all interface with online business on a daily basis. Twitter, Facebook, Google, Amazon, eBay, PayPal, YouTube, iTunes, these are all examples of online businesses, and there are hundreds if not thousands of others that we interact with. But for our purposes and for this overview video, we're going to define an online business as any business that sells products or services on the internet, i.e., as opposed to information-only websites. Now, keep in mind that there are also important differences between the kinds of online businesses. For example, those that rely on user-generated content, like Facebook and YouTube, and those that don't. And we'll see why that's important later on in the presentation. Now, your business model is going to determine what kinds of contractual arrangements are required. However, all online businesses require privacy policies and terms of use agreement. Gone are the days where you can simply copy these agreements from your competitors or elsewhere on the internet. They simply are not going to hold up in a court of law. Also, the content of your privacy policy and your terms of use will be dictated by your business model, including language required to leverage certain safe harbors, such as the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and that deal with other important aspects of your business model and other relevant issues, such as COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, entrepreneurs should not confuse contractual language with legal protection. The language itself is necessary but not sufficient. The underlying processes matter a lot. Courts are simply no longer going to be fooled by flowery contractual language found in online agreements, if they ever were. They really want to know what the business did in fact. Did you in fact do what your terms of use and your privacy policy said you were going to do? Business structure and organization is an important concept for the reasons that we're going to discuss. Now, the most common business entities in the United States are: one, the sole proprietorship; two, the corporation, and there's various flavors; and three, the limited liability company. That's not an exhaustive list, that's just the most common. Now, there are major differences between the type of business entity selected, but here's a summary of the differences. One, whether limited liability is provided to owners, and two, IRS tax treatment. Limited liability encourages entrepreneurship because owners can only lose the amount of money invested, i.e., your in general, your personal assets are not exposed. Now, limited liability is found in the corporate entity and is found in the limited liability company, and that's why it's named that way, but it's not found in the sole proprietorship. So if you want to protect your personal assets when you do business online, you need to have either a corporate entity or an LLC. Now also, keep in mind, in order to get the legal protection afforded by limited liability, you must follow certain rules of the road. Which rules? Well, here's a summary. You must appropriately create the entity in a state of your choosing. So business entities are creatures of state law. You must follow annual state procedures required to remain in active status. Usually this means paying the state an annual renewal fee. If you don't do that, you could be administratively dissolved. You must also pay the IRS taxes consistent with the type of business entity selected. And finally, and this is the most important piece here, you must keep your company's books completely separate from your personal finances or risk losing limited liability protection under a doctrine called piercing the corporate veil. Now let's turn our attention to online liability. Now most online liability comes from a misuse of copyrighted works and trademarks. And with respect to copyright, there's a potential safe harbor for online businesses under the DMCA if certain processes are followed. Now these processes are detailed in the Act and must be followed with a degree of rigor if you're going to take advantage of the safe harbor. It turns out that the DMCA safe harbor is incredibly important to online businesses such as YouTube and Facebook that rely on user-generated content. Now, online liability can also result from a violation of a business's privacy policy. This is primarily true because many online businesses are simply too cavalier about what their policies contain and don't honor what is contained within them. Online liability can also result from defamatory speech. Here again, the Communications Decency Act, the CDA, provides a safe harbor for the entrepreneur if they follow certain rules of the road. Now, if your business is in a specialized vertical, for example, healthcare or adult entertainment, where you store credit card information or you cater to children, then there is particularized regulatory compliance liability that you may be subject to. Online businesses that contain a social networking component, and most breakout online businesses do, are high-risk online businesses because they are exposed on any number of fronts. The bottom line here is, and the takeaway is, that all successful online businesses eventually become targets of lawsuits. Why? For the same reason that Jesse James robbed banks, because that's where the money is. Now let's briefly discuss the scope of applicable online law. Intellectual property, including but not limited to copyright, trademarks, and trade secrets, are important considerations for all online businesses. With respect to defamation, Section 230 of the CDA provides immunity from liability for providers and users of an interactive computer service who publish information provided by others. Essentially, the online business gets a safe harbor from defamatory statements made by third parties, again, if certain rules of the road are followed. Now, with respect to privacy, entrepreneurs need to understand that the demise of privacy protection for consumers in the U.S. has been greatly exaggerated. The FTC has been aggressive of late with respect to enforcement, and the Office of Civil Rights looks like it will be turning up the heat in the healthcare space with its high-tech HIPAA enforcement initiatives. And there are other applicable statutes, such as the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and the CAN-SPAM Act. This is not an exhaustive list, but it does provide the entrepreneur a feel for the scope of the laws that may apply online. Also, contracts are everywhere online. The core issue here has to do with following electronic contract formation principles of a valid offer and acceptance. Courts will honor online contracts that are properly formed. The issue has to do with the process by which a contract is formed and not the language contained within it. Finally, because litigants are often from different states, other arcane legal issues arise, such as personal jurisdiction, form, and venue. It's never been easier to start an online business. Why? Because companies like Google, Apple, Intuit, RingCentral, PayPal, Amazon, eBay, and others provide almost all the required infrastructure at price points unequaled in brick and mortarville. However, you will need to take some basic steps to protect your IP, or it will be at risk online. For example, basic instruments such as non-disclosure agreements should be used prior to launch, and web development contracts must clearly delineate who owns the IP being developed. Copyright basic facts. Registration with the U.S. Copyright Office is a must. Otherwise, 1, you can't bring suit in federal court, and 2, you can't get statutory damages. Copyright registration requires nominal filing fees plus legal fees. Trademark basic facts. Marks are ranked along a continuum from arbitrary fanciful to generic. Arbitrary fanciful marks such as Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, etc. readily get protection, whereas generic marks get no protection at all. This is a case where a rose by any other name may not smell as sweet. Marks have obvious importance regarding branding, domain names, etc. Trademark registration requires filing fees per class of $325 plus legal fees. There's only so much information that can be provided in an overview video, so we wanted to point you to additional resources. Here's a list of all our tutorials on the Digital Business Law Group website. Here's a specific tutorial entitled Starting an Online Business with its table of contents. And finally, we've developed an Internet Law Resources directory where you can continue to explore these topics. Digital Business Law Group has developed a set of fixed fee packages that directly target the needs of online startups. Please check out our website for additional information. Thanks for listening. It's been my pleasure being with you today.